mentioned this morning in Spokane, really moved by what they did there. And really they started from bringing people in who had been customers, bringing people with disabilities in and sitting them down and saying, let's talk about, what makes a good experience. I got to interview the CEO for HSN not too long ago, about a year ago, I guess. And one of the things that Mitzi told me that really stuck with me was that one of the things they had come to recognize at HSN was that we are, and think about it, it does make sense, we are the sum of our experiences. And so she was saying that when they design their programming, they have to recognize that you and I shop, right? We all shop. And we intuitively know when we've had a good experience doing that. And so the next time, if we've had a really good experience, the next time we go to shop, or if you think about checking into the hotel or checking into the airline, we have an expectation of how we are going to be taken care of, right? We have an expectation of how the clerk or the retail, the salesperson is going to approach us, how they're going to talk to us, how they're going to help us. So I think it's one of the things that I get to see some of you, and some of you probably have, some of you who learn, is to sit back and think about what the customer looks like. So I think the primary thing that we see over and over again when the one-stops look at themselves or what we think about as innovation, it starts with looking at that human-centered design. How do we experience different sales experiences, or checking into a hotel? And so thinking intuitively and consciously thinking about, so how do we design this better? Not too long ago, we were in Wichita, Kansas, and had about 4 or 5 people with us. And one of the people made the observation that, hey, there's not many seats in the waiting area. Like, do you just make people stand around? Like when they come in, do they just stand around? And they had redesigned the lobby so that instead of like a desk or instead of like a counter, like a hotel, you've gone into hotels, right? And they have now the pods. So there's somebody standing behind the pod instead of like this big formal thing. And so that's what the waiting area looked like for the one-stop. There were 4 pods, and people were standing behind the pods. And so one of the people with me made the observation to Keith, the director, Keith Lyon, that you don't have many chairs. Like people just stand around. And Keith said, no, that's intentional. We don't want people standing. We don't want people sitting around in the waiting area. That's not where we get to tell them. It's not where we get to share what's going on in the labor market. It's not where they get to share with us where they are and what they're looking for. So I think again, what we saw was starting with the customer. One other example. We're doing a lot of work right now around family-centered employment. And so we started with 3 sites pretty intensely, working with three geographies: Montgomery County, Maryland, Maricopa County, Arizona, and El Paso, Texas. And what the 3 of them taught us was that they started by sitting down with single moms and just walking through her total experience. Like, where do you have your kids in childcare? How do you understand what's a quality childcare setting? How do you get from there to work? How do you get to here? And then just starting to think about how they were going to design their family-centered response to what was happening with the moms. And they do that on a very continuing basis, do focus groups, literally focus groups, with single moms and single parents to figure out how do you live your day, how do the mechanics actually work. So I think it's one of the things that we see. One of the other things that we see is, I guess you'd call it innovative, and that is a focus on quality standards, quality processes. Again, it's something else I think business people bring to the board. When we talk to business people, we mention Aldrich quality standards. Very few businesses say to us, what? When we talk about ISO standards, very few businesses don't understand what ISO means. So we've seen systems that apply ISO and we've seen systems that apply Baldrige principles to how they operate. So their process is centered around what makes good design, what makes good organizations, how do organizations make good decisions, and when decisions are bad or not optimized, how do they understand the process that they went through to make that decision? So we've seen we've seen places with deep intentionality relying on their board members to help them walk through the organization that they're doing. One other example, or two other examples real quick, I was just down in Georgia not too long ago. Some of you may know Carol Rayburn, who's a long-term director down there. We took a tour of two things. One is her mobile manufacturing experience. They actually put together a trailer that they tow to community events, they tow to different high schools, and it was put together by some manufacturers in her region, and it's really like, it's a pretty concentrated, it's a mini boot camp into what is manufacturing. So Carol has been taking that to different school districts. She has part of her territory is pretty rural. So she's taking that to school districts. They do that for community days and community events, so people can come in and get a sense of what manufacturing looks like today. In Greensboro, North Carolina, they do a really interesting event. They do an annual HR exchange, and they invite HR directors from across their territory to come to breakfast, and they spend about, 3 hours together. Part of that is, and Bill was talking earlier about skillful and looking at competency-based hiring. So when I was down there this year, they were talking to HR professionals across the region about competency-based hiring and what was new with competency-based hiring. And then they turned part of the experience back to the HR directors, asking them, again, how could we serve you better? What is it you're looking for? What is it you're not finding? I got to sit there for a great presentation from a person who admitted that they'd been in manufacturing a long time. And they talked about their discovery of people who are coming out of the justice system, returning back from prison, and their experience in working with them and now hiring them. And by the way, I mentioned earlier the apprenticeship project in Southeast Missouri. It starts when the guys are in prison. They're learning hydroponics and they're learning biology while they're in prison. They do a work release with one of the farms in the area, and the majority of those guys have been hired when they leave. The final one I'll bring to you is that, so sometimes we think about our one-stop, but we don't think about our one-stop system. In Las Vegas, Jaime Cruz and his crew started to think about how do we increase accessibility to what it is we know. So they are now in 11 libraries across Clark County in Nevada, which is, and I know you guys know, because none of us ever went to a conference in Vegas, right? Nobody ever put on an expense form, I have a conference that I'm going to in Vegas. We all say we're going to Clark County, Nevada. So what Jaime does now is, when he's doing a labor market orientation for his frontline staff, here's what we're seeing, here's what's going on. He's bringing in all the libraries to that briefing, so that he has now expanded his one-stop network, obviously about tenfold, because now he has 11 locations who are connected in with the same kind of information and some of the same handout material that you would get at his comprehensive one-stop. You are now getting at this library network across Clark County. So I think what we've seen from across the country, we talk to people, it seems kind of crazy sometimes to start by sitting down and talking about the goals and the values. Instead of starting by what money are you going to contribute or who are you going to have here, starting by talking about what goals, what's our goal for this project, and then what's our value? How do we want people treated? How do we want people served? And then how do people in our area, how do our consumers experience buying? How do they experience being served at other locations? And then again, the reverse engineering. So I know that some of the folks, some of you may have gone through human-centered design, which has been a couple of projects I see in NAWB. Everywhere I go that has done it has had remarkable results. So I really encourage you to figure out how do you develop that community of practice, community of learning around human-centered design. The payoff is enormous, not only for the customer, business, the individual, but the staff. When you talk to Mark Mackey's staff out in Spokane, boy, there's an energy. There is an energy among the staff because they know not only are they doing good work, they're doing it in a really quality way, and a very, as I mentioned earlier, very, very high consumer satisfaction rating for people's experience. So I leave that with you. We're certainly prepared to help you where we can. Thank you for allowing me to hang out and learn in your day. And I'm looking forward to my plane companion, Scott. Thank you.